Japan, 48. As the junior partner in a military alliance, the Japanese are appropriately deferential, but they are nevertheless convinced that the Americans have assumed too forward a military posture and have spent too much on military hardware. Japan is much closer to China and Russia than the United States. Than the United States, but with some minor exceptions, as when the Soviet Union attacks Japanese fishing boats and its airplanes invade Japanese airspace. The Japanese perception of the military threat is lower than America's. For a year, the Americans appeared more anxious to keep troops in Japan than the Japanese were to have them there. In the view of Japanese leaders, raising Japan's military expenses above the level of 1% of its GNP would not appreciably increase security. They see maintaining good relations with the other countries to guarantee the flow of natural resources is more important for natural. They see maintaining good relations with other countries to guarantee the flow of natural resources as more important for national security than military weaponry. In a sense, Japan's military policy is bold enterprise, an effort to be the only major power that is not in a major military power, and only major power that is not a major military power. It is the boldness that has high payoffs, direct and indirect, for the private sector. For over 2 decades, the World War II Japan, pursuing economic growth with a passion that America reserved for fighting communism, turned a higher proportion of its GNP and intellectual efforts towards the basic internal development than did the United States. Parts of the American electronics industries, for example, found it desirable to produce for the government contracts, which guaranteed a certain amount of profit rather than for the consumer market. They therefore neglected the international competition in consumer electronics, whereas Japanese firms were forced to be competitive and recaptured an increasing share of the market. And as it continues, there is the share of the market as well. The Japanese firms were forced to be competitive and captured an increasing share of the market. When the American government invests in research and development, the highest proportion goes to military, space, or basic research. The Japanese government, on the other hand, concentrates research expenditure in areas where there is a high probability of substantial return for Japanese companies, but where investment costs are sufficiently great and risky as to be otherwise unattractive to the private industry, that the goal of the government is to own research institutions, is not to increase governmental control over these areas, but to make the research results available to the companies that can best use them to enhance the competitiveness of the economy or the industrial sector as a whole. This is true for those institutes that are part of the government, such as MITIs, agencies of industrial science and technology, as well as those institutes financed by other resources, such as those institutes under MITI, the Ministry of Transportation, the Ministry of Agriculture, that are the financed respectively by bicycle racing, boat racing, and horse racing.